Let's take a look at money matters. The JSE rose nearly 1%, a level unseen since early September. Mirroring gains seen in global markets, the rand, on the other hand, has slipped against the dollar as risk sentiment soars. Viv Govender is the portfolio manager at Rand Swiss, and he joins us now to take a look at the latest market moves. Viv, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. The rand is under pressure at midday trade. What's driving the declines?
Well, of course, the CPI number obviously did not help. We are sitting around right now about 1871, 1870 or so. Look, I mean, this is levels we've seen not that far back. Go back a week or so, or 2 weeks, back to about the 10th of November or so. We're about 1870. We just had a bit of a brief patch where we went below 1830. Over the last couple of weeks, so it's not too dramatic from that point of view. But I do think that, obviously in the current environment, when you are seeing, some economies are doing really well when it comes to inflation and others not so well, it does hurt you not to do so well when it comes to trying to fight your inflation problems.
South Africa's inflation rose for the third straight month, as you noted, to 5.9% in October. Help us make sense of the implications of the increase more so on you and I.
Yeah, look, this is obviously a huge issue for the country. It's something that I think, we have to take into account the fact that it's the cost of living, changes that we are seeing coming through are quite, troublesome for South Africa. In terms of the issues at the moment, obviously food, etc., are big problems. I think we should see some relief coming through in the next month or so. Just because of the fact that oil prices have come down, the rand has, like we talked about, been a bit stronger for much of this month than it has been for the previous month. So we should see some relief coming through from with regards to that. But yeah, of course, if you look at international markets, the problem is that the US came in at about 3 point something. We saw the UK drop dramatically. The European Union grew better than expected. Most of the world is seeing CPI coming under control. The fact that we are trending a little higher is not good for us.
How should we understand that? I guess even more so on the back of the Competition Commission's win, if it is a win, because you take a look at the rand manipulation, you take a look at inflation. How closely linked are the two?
Well, look, I don't think the rand manipulation is what people think it is. It's not a case of somebody moved the rand from 10 to like 19. It is not going to be possible. You can't, even if you're a huge bank, unless there's you're fighting against a central bank that's obviously messing around with the market. Like, I mean, the example I would use is George Soros back in the early 1990s, where he basically went against the Bank of England. And in that scenario, what happened was the Bank of England was artificially inflating the value of the pound. He basically put a group of other people, got together, and they just pounded the Bank of England until it gave up and the pound weakened. And that is something you can do, and you can manipulate the country, move the currency that there. But it's only when you fight other people's manipulation. Even the Bank of England, like we talked about, can't go and move the value of its currency despite the power it has. It takes a central bank to even weaken a currency over a long period of time. So that's not what the problem here is. What the problem here is that these guys were taking a little bit of extra money from every single trade, every single action being done in the market, for a long time. It's kind of like adding a little tax to all the traders out there, or adding a little tax to all the transactions happening out there, and that is the issue that they had. A bank like a private bank is not going to be able to go out and move a currency like the rand, even 1 rand or 2 rands. It's too much. It's such a huge movement. But what they can do is that every time you try and buy, they can take a half a cent from you, and if you try and sell, they take another half a cent from you, and over time that half a cent adds up to a lot of money. And that's what I think the thing that you understand here, it happened.
And that's just it. Essentially, what is the sanction? Does the sanction justify? What's the question here? Was the sanction enough? Yeah, was the sanction enough?
No. I mean, an example again I would use internationally. There was a Sri Lankan American. I can't remember his exact name here, but anyway, he was caught for insider trading, where he was trading on insider information. He was worth over $1 billion. He was a multi-billionaire. The trade that he was caught for was something like about $10 million. So we talked about 1/10, like a percent basically of his valuation, maybe less than 1% of his total net worth. And he lost money on the trade, by the way. He used inside information, but he lost money on the trade. So he didn't make any money on the trade, he lost money. They still put him away for a decade. right? Because he broke the law. When it comes to these kind of things, you can't be looking just at saying, oh, this particular transaction is bad, and therefore we punish you for that transaction. Understand that because there's so many things happening in the financial markets, you can't catch every single thing. It's not possible for any regulator to look at every single transaction and understand if there's no illegality happening there. It's just not possible. So this is a case where, like for instance, if you steal money from like a shop, you steal a chocolate bar, you don't get put away for 10 years because it's not proportional. But the problem is that if the bank steals a chocolate bar, it's probably stealing 100,000 chocolate bars that you haven't seen. But that one chocolate bar you have seen, you get caught for that, you know what I mean? And therefore it might be worth it giving you a higher sentence for a crime like this when you're caught, just to dissuade you from ever even attempting something else. Because there's many things a bank can do that the regulator will never see. It takes a lot of luck to that extent. It's certain incompetence on behalf of the financial institution to get caught in the first place. So that's why sometimes you must be overly punishing as opposed to, just being proportional with regards to the punishment.
It takes incompetence to get caught. Viv Govender, with the inflation figures or numbers coming out today, what does it say about the interest rate decision that we are anticipating? An early Christmas present or not from the Reserve Bank, do you perceive?
Look, with this number, with our number that's come out here, no. We can't be expecting any kind of presence, any kind of happiness coming through. We might be able to, maintain with the U.S. in terms of movements. If they basically don't raise, we might be able to basically hold on to our thing, especially since we are still like within the range, that 3 to 6% range that we want. You know what I mean? But that being said, I would have to say that looking at the fact that we are the only ones that are in such a dire situation at the moment, it is not great. It is something where it's not dire situation, but in the wrong trend. And especially in South Africa, I mean, obviously there's certain once-off factors that are happening here. The way it's a good thing, or the way it's a bad thing. The once-off factor that's really pushing us at the moment is basically food inflation. Food inflation, risen quite sharply. I mean, like for this is the price of eggs, I think it's up 25%, and that's to do with that avian influenza, bird flu, effectively. And so that's obviously like a thing that's probably going to go away as the sick birds are moved, and we have the supply return to the market is proper. But what it also means is that this is the one area of the economy that really affects poor people quite badly. Food inflation. So that's one good, one bad thing. So I do think there's a lot of stuff happening right now that's going to be temporary that we should see come back to normal. But I don't think the Reserve Bank can go and preemptively start cutting rates when the Fed has not done so yet, and when our inflation rate is so close to the 6% upper level.
On food inflation, maybe a different day we'll talk about the competence of or incompetence of getting caught or not there. Let's take a look at Old Mutual. It has published a voluntary operating update for the quarter ending in September. Talk us through the performance.
Yeah, with all these institutions at the moment here, what we are seeing is that, we are seeing basically the overall economy affecting us, affecting the major banks, especially affecting basically the overall economy. Old Mutual says they're doing reasonably well. They're saying they think positive momentum coming through in terms of the insurance business. They are seeing a bit more positivity in the first 9 months of the year, which is a good thing, which I don't think is an easy thing to do in the current environment. So that is a positive that we are seeing coming from Old Mutual.
All right. MTN South Africa has blasted Telkom for asking to delay ICASA's next broadband spectrum auction. What's going on?
Yeah, look, I mean, here's the thing. Yeah, I mean, the way it works is that the government owns the spectrum. The government owns the radio waves in the country. And what it has to do, it has to basically get as much money for those waves for a period of time as it basically can, because, it needs to basically, as the owner for the country, it needs to basically get the most revenue in. Unfortunately, what happens is legacy players like Telkom often have over, allocations of these waves, and they're not using the fullest ability. I mean, Telkom has less than 1/10 the market cap of MTN. It's a much smaller operator than MTN. But if you look at basically how the government has treated in the past and what it has gotten, you would think it's a much closer competitor to MTN and Vodacom than it actually is. Now, MTN obviously wants to get better, bandwidth out there, better spectrum out there, because it allows it to, for instance, give better service to its clients. It's easier and cheaper to do those things. If you're restricted the amount of bandwidth you have, you're going to be overusing it, and that causes problems and so on. So telecom has an advantage in things being delayed, and MTN has an advantage in things being accelerated, and that's the issue here. Because as the incumbent, the old incumbent like telecom is, it benefits from the current situation. And it was MTN, even though it's like obviously many, many decades later after it formed, as the new player in the place, benefits from a bit of a change happening, and that's what's the real driver here.
Viv, as always, thank you very much for your contribution. Viv Govender is the portfolio manager at Rand Swiss.